Welcome to Hope is Here. My name is Greg Horn. We are continuing our conversation with Linda Toupin. She has been an educator, a national sales director, a motivational speaker. She's traveled internationally to help encourage and motivate people. She's a mom, a grandmother, and even sings in her choir at church. But we have been talking yesterday. We continue today talking about this really powerful quote that I read of hers recently called "Getting Your Life in Order starts with the choices that you make every day or allowing others to make for you." And I know a lot of times people lose hope and they don't realize that it's simply because of that quote. Getting your life in order starts with the choices that you make every day or allow others to make for you. Linda, share with us, how did you come up with that quote? What caused you to get to that moment that you're like, I got to post this? And you did something, we're going to talk more about it. It's got over 2 million people that have listened to something you did based off this, but talk to us about this. How did you get here?
Well, I told you in the last episode, I became a home economics instructor back in the 1980s. And it was there that I had invited a guest speaker to come to my classroom to work with my students on skincare because I didn't know anything about skincare. And she was with a company called Mary Kay. And she asked me that day, have you ever thought about running your own business? And I said no. But the more I learned about Mary Kay, the person, the Christian basis for her company, that God and family should come before career, that's all based on the golden rule, I was fascinated. That was not the conversation in my teacher's lounge on a daily basis. So in 1982, I picked up that as my side job. By 1986, I was driving a pink Cadillac to my school every day to teach. And so my son was born. I stepped away from education and went into the education of mothers and women and teaching them to run companies from their home. And it was during that time period that it was so evident to me from my milking the cow background, from my home ec background, that everybody is where they are in their life by the choices they've made. So the mantra became kind of how I built everything. I am where I am by the choices I've made or I've allowed others to make for me. Now, if we were living, Greg, in a third world country, we could not say that. That is not a true statement. But in the country we live in, the freest, most incredible country that's ever existed on the planet, we have total responsibility for our choices and where we are in our lives. And so if you woke up this morning and you weren't excited about what God had planned for you, look in the mirror. Don't blame your husband or your wife, your partner. You married them, okay? Don't blame children if your life is not what you had dreamed it would be, because children are not born to fulfill you. Let me say that again. Children's job is not to fulfill you as a parent. What a horrible responsibility to put on your child. And if you woke up this morning and you weren't excited about your life, don't blame your boss. You choose to go there, and right now everybody's hiring. And so I know I slapped a few people in the face as you listen to those words, and you barely know me yet. But they were sent in love because God gave you free will, and you keep making the same bad choices or allowing other people. And I know it takes a lot of courage and a lot of bravery and a lot of prayer to change your life by changing your choices, but there are ways to do that.
Well, I love that. The Bible says speak the truth in love, and that's what I feel like you're doing. And, this is not a typical Hope is Here program. A lot of them, are kind of warm and fuzzy, and we need that. But I also know in my life that there's been times I've needed the truth in love. And honestly, at first, sometimes I didn't like it. In fact, I even kind of, I'll never forget, I had 102 temperature when I was coaching at Western. I think I had the flu, and I was going through shirts, sweating through. And I had the scouting report against Eastern Kentucky University, your alma mater. It's a big rivalry game. And I was like, man, I just don't know how I can do this. So I called home to my mom wanting a little sympathy. And so I whined about how bad I felt, blah, blah. I just don't know if I can do this, but I knew I had to because I had the scouting report against our game and our big rival game against Eastern. And my mom listened kindly, and then she just said to me, well, if you want to come home, you can. And I got so angry. I said, okay, thanks, I got to go. And I was so angry at her. But then after I got out, I thought, you know what, she's right. I need to suck it up. I need to press through. I need to, make the choice that this is, I can do this. And I did. And it was a really big moment for me, honestly.
And it increased your self-confidence and your self-esteem because
Absolutely.
you pressed through instead of giving in. For sure.
Yeah, so I'm thankful that my mom did speak truth and love to me. And so, anyway, it's a side note, but people know that listen to this program for 5 years that I love my mom, but I'm so thankful she spoke truth and love to me. So, talk about choices and just, going in the right direction and things like that, things that, because hope's not a strategy, right?
No, I think that where people get hung up is they agree with what we're talking about, but they don't know where to start. Well, you have to start with how did it happen that you think the way you think? Well, you have to have a little psychology here, because people are born and they are programmed. I have a phone with me right now, and that phone was made in China and was programmed, which means that someone taught my phone how to think. And I purchased the phone and I taught my phone how to interact with me. Okay, that's just a little device created by the Apple company. We are created by something far more superior than the Apple company. And we are literally programmed from the moment we're born by the influences that are allowed in our lives. Okay, so that's why parenting is the most important job that you will ever have, and what you allow in your children's life. So the moment a child is born, people speak to that child, and those thoughts become creases in their brain. Okay, this is an IMAX movie. Save yourself $8.50. Okay, and so they hear something. I love you. It travels on a crease in their brain. Well, the 1,000th time that child hears that is such a deep crease in their thoughts. So if I could open up everyone's brain that's listening and I could peer inside, I would see interstates. And those interstates are thoughts that you constantly say to yourself over and over because someone said them to you. And in order to change your life, you have to change those creases. If they're good, you want to keep them. If they're not good, you have to change them. And so we're just I grew up in Appalachia. I grew up in a more of a welfare county. And so I didn't hear dark or evil thoughts. I didn't hear just, happy, positive thoughts. I heard a little bit of limiting thoughts. Like, now people like us don't have stuff like that. Don't get above your raising. Be happy with what you got. Now that's not evil or dark. It's just limiting. And so if we want to change our life, we have to change what we're listening to and who we're listening to, because that changes a crease. So practically, how does that look? I put 60,000 miles on a car for 30 years, traveling, developing my Mary Kay business. And this is long before, Greg, this is long before a cell phone. Okay, this is back in bag phones. This is long before you had that. And I would just get bored, be driving down the interstate, just be bored. And I would just say, well, I think I want something to eat. Now, I wasn't hungry. I don't know if y'all know this, but food makes you fat. And so if you just eat just because you're bored, it doesn't have good consequences. And so what I would do is I literally carry a piece of paper with me in the car. And as I came up on that exit, and I kept thinking, I need something to eat. And I kept saying, no, Linda, you don't need nothing to eat. I would take a piece of paper and I would literally form a new crease in it and say out loud in the car by myself, that thought doesn't serve me, that thought doesn't serve me, that thought doesn't serve me, until I was past that exit and I couldn't get off. And that is literally a physical way you have to do it. You have to be aware, stop the thought, and then replace it with a different thought. All right, there's your psychology class for today,
Well,
people.
it was powerful. You shared that with me when we were speaking, and the Bible talks about taking every thought captive in 2 Corinthians chapter 10:5, and that's what I hear you saying. Because, I've shared with our listeners, food's been a struggle for me, and when you were sharing, I thought, man, that's so true, and so that's why I wanted to have Linda on here, just to kind of challenge your thinking, your choices, and you can change that. And it's easy to get in bad habits, but it's easy to start forming good habits, isn't it?
And I love that Bible verse. Take your thoughts captive, which means you own them. You own them, you can hold them, you can stop them, you can begin them. And people's addictions are just those simple things of like, I keep thinking this thought, I keep it's amazing how simple it is, but how hard it is for some people.
Well, one of the things when we met, recently, you shared with me, and I think somebody needs to hear this. Everybody's got a gift, right?
Oh my gosh. I love to meet people. I am so fascinated by people. I mean, I love airports. I could sit in an airport like all day long and just watch people. And every one of those people, I just see them as babies, as coming from heaven. And God has implanted a gift in that person, but they have to find it. You have to find your gifts. And sometimes you need positive, visionary people, God-filled people around you to help you see your gifts, to remind you of your gifts. And I just think that's such a beautiful thing to know that He knew me before I was born, and He sent me here for a reason. And that reason may not be clear to you at the moment.
Well, and another thing you said, and once again, we want to help people grow, and from Hope is Here, especially 2023. And I love this quote I saw on your Facebook page. Would really encourage you to follow Linda on Facebook. It's Linda Toupin, Toupin, Linda Toupin. But you had this great quote. You said, 2023 is going to look exactly the same as 2022 unless you get out of your comfort zone.
Oh my goodness, yes. And we like to get out of our comfort zone for a minute, but the moment it gets uncomfortable, we go back to it. I know, I mean, we all battle with the food situation. And of course, at Christmas, it's out of control. And I mean, I literally physically just made the choice. I bundled it all up. I gave it to a guy who had a bunch of friends who they can consume those calories and it not affect them. And I just eliminated the food from my house because if it's not in my house, I can't eat it. So, I mean, we have to make our life uncomfortable if we're going to change.
Well, another quote you put, I thought this was so powerful for men and women. You know, you got to run your life the same way that you run your business. Talk about that.
Well, I want to say this real quickly because this is a really powerful statement as well when we're talking about change. You will remain the same until the pain of remaining the same is greater than the pain of change. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, take a deep cleansing breath and think that thought. You will remain the same until the pain of remaining the same is greater than the pain of change. Because you're going to have pain either way that you go about it. What was your question, Greg? I've already forgot it.
I haven't either because that's such a great quote with that. You talked about, and I thought this was so powerful, men and women, you shared with me, you got to run your life the same way you would run a business.
Well, when I started teaching women how to run companies from their home, I realized that they ran their business the same way they ran their home. One flows to the other. And so the great news, the really great news and hope here is when you make a positive change in one area of your life, it could be spiritual, it could be physical, it could be financial, it could be emotional, it could be social. If you make a positive change, it becomes easier and easier to make that positive change in all arenas of your life. It almost always happens. Can we talk, Greg, real quickly here in this last minute about diluting some of the negative voices? Because, guys, if you're going to make these positive changes in your life, you're living in a world either with the people that you work with or you're living in a home, and you can't always escape people who maybe aren't the most positive people in the world. So how do you deal with that? Because you're sitting here today and you're thinking, I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to make some positive changes. You have to dilute those voices. When you've got this negative person in your life, you have to be able to replace their negative messages with positive. And that may be simply when you step away from them, turning on a good podcast or good music or something. But it's all dilution. And if I'm back on in the future, we'll definitely talk about some more practical things there, you guys, but it can be done even in negative environments.
Well, amen and amen. And gosh, I want to really challenge. In fact, I want to encourage, but I'm just going to challenge you. Go check out Linda's website. A lot of just great things there that'll help you make better choices. That great quote of hers, I am where I am by the choices I have made or allowed others to make, because I know a lot of times we like to play the blame game, and just want to encourage you, go check out our website. It's lindatoupin.com. That's TOUPIN.com. You can get her information about her YouTube channel. She's got this great program called Common Sense Choices with Linda Toupin. If you're driving, you're like, oh man, I want to write this down. All this information is going to be with the podcast of this. It'll be out later today. Just go to our website, hopeisheretoday.org. That's hopeisheretoday.org. For Linda Toupin, I'm Greg Horn, and this is Hope is Here.